Hello and welcome to Refueled Episode 6 Virtual Style.
Yeah, we're doing something a little bit different this week, aren't we? And I guess, do we need to explain the reason why?
I think we should, because I think it deserves an explanation.
Okay. I'm immune to COVID. There's your explanation. The wife's got COVID, so unfortunately, we've got to do the right thing and respect everybody else and not go out and all that. But I'm immune. There you go. Tested, immune, done.
It's all that whiskey vaccinations that you've been having in the background.
Yes, yeah. Well, I bought another few sampling bottles this week, so just to test for Christmas. So I'm going to increase my COVID immunity for Christmas over the next couple of days.
It obviously works well.
Yeah, I see you've got your whiskey set up in the back of your Range Rover there, though, as well.
Yeah, I thought I'd just bring that out, seeing we're doing it virtually. I thought I'd have some virtual whiskey in the back of my virtual Overfinch.
There you go. I'm surprised. We haven't sort of appealed to the American market and gone with the virtual shotgun Overfinch. The accessory.
Well, I'm surprised you haven't got a virtual truck with your virtual gun and your virtual cowboy boots.
Too hard. Too hard to set up. Like at least I've got coffee. So there you go.
At least you got coffee. I've already had mine. I was waiting for you that long. I've drank it already.
Yeah, I know. Well, as I said, in spirit of what we spoke about, I see you've got your Ford T-shirt on. So does that mean that we're not going to get any Jeep versus Land Rover news? So this week.
I'm still researching that.
You're still researching. See, there you go.
But I believe there was a 2022 reliability survey published recently. And we know that a certain manufacturer is in the bottom 5 and a certain manufacturer wasn't. I'll leave it at that.
But you can't just throw that out without obviously discussing it more. I mean, look at some of the models of Jeep and then look at the comparisons. I mean, if you're comparing, like a Compass to a Discovery, well, I mean, it's not a fair comparison because, I mean, Compass is not a Jeep, in all honesty.
Well, that's not a fair comparison because the Compass is crap and a Discovery is actually pretty good.
Yeah, so you got to look like, Wrangler versus Discovery. There's your comparison. Or Wrangler versus Defender. Yeah. So Wrangler versus Defender. Maybe a Range Rover, versus a Jeep Grand Cherokee or something like that. So, and pros and cons for all. But I'll leave that one in your field to continue to research.
I'll leave it to continue to research. Yeah. But yeah, I think as a brand, one of the manufacturers appeared in the least 5 most reliable, if that makes sense.
Yes,
the bottom 5, and one brand didn't, which indicates that there was one brand that had higher issues of unreliability than another.
Yes.
And it's what I suspected.
It's what you suspected.
But in terms of doing more research, I'll definitely. It's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress. Yeah, I want physical numbers. So yeah, because I mean, Land Rover made crap as well that broke down and didn't work and left you stranded.
Only the Range Rover P38.
No. Buddy, my Discovery left me stranded at one stage, if you remember.
Well, it wasn't the car's fault. It was the battery's fault.
Well, I mean, and then it was the security system put into the Discovery, which was engineered by NASA scientists to bloody get the thing going again when you put a new fucking battery in. Ring up the dealer, get the code. Well, of course, you can get it on Google. You put the key in the ignition and, it's back 3 times, forward once, back once, forward twice, stand on one leg and do a twirl. And then deactivate the security system. Well, I mean, how are you supposed to remember that? Well,
you're not supposed. That's the whole point of a security system. That just shows you the lengths that Land Rover engineers go to make sure that your vehicle is secure. Even in the event of a failed battery, you are safe in the knowledge that your vehicle is secure and won't be stolen.
So I'm going to I want to steal the Landrover. So the first thing that I'm going to do is try and open the bonnet and steal the battery, and then put a new battery in.
But you can't. How do you open the bonnet?
Well, you got to get into the car to start with.
Yeah, exactly.
Which
and you can't do
you've
that.
got a key for. So I had a key, like I had the key, for the Discovery, and it still won't start even with the key. So
because your battery was flat.
Because the battery was flat. That's it.
Well, that's like any car.
Useless bloody thing. So
well, most cars don't start with a flat battery. You do realise this, don't you?
So of course we had to leave it. We had to go home. Had to do research for hours to work out how to get it in, and then of course it's on a weekend, so you can't call your dealer. And then, well, lo and behold, bottom of a forum to the left, 3 times removed, there's this, well, if you get stranded and you get a flat battery and you can open your car door and open your bonnet, there's a secret code that you can use. And you do it through the driver's door. Put it in, away you go. And it works.
So Land Rover think of everything. I bet you couldn't do that in your Jeep.
No, it wouldn't have any security at all.
No, if your battery went flat, you might as well just go and say goodbye to it.
Well, you got no need for security in a Jeep. I mean, you've got a soft top, wind in your hair, motoring like that.
And nobody wants to steal it.
And nobody wants to steal it. So, had both good. So, and I'd have both again. So there you go.
There you go. Oh, good fun. Anyway, yeah. So we'll continue that discussion when I get the data.
We'll continue that discussion. Excellent. Well, what have you got? Have you got any news for us this week? So
I picked up the RS the other day, the green RS that blew up.
Green RS, lovely.
I picked it back up from the workshop the other day.
The one that exploded everywhere.
The one that exploded. So it's back to fully functional. It's got a new plenum. It's got a new bonnet. And it's like new again.
It's like new again.
I even got rid of this annoying little stone chip that I had in my old bonnet is now obviously gone, which is
fantastic.
Just a bonus.
So how long is it going to be before it blows up again?
Well, going by the last one, should be lasting the 12 years.
Oh dear. So no more 8,000 RPM launches from traffic lights?
No, we'll let the plenum bed in.
Right. Okay. So what's that? So it's an aftermarket plenum that you've got?
It is, yeah. It's Air Tech, I think it is.
Okay, lovely.
Which
any improvement in performance at all or not?
I wouldn't think so. I didn't actually discuss that with my guy, but I don't believe so. Yeah.
Just it is that weak point, I think, and it's probably one of the only weak points in the RS, isn't it? The plastic plenum.
From an engine standpoint, unless you start obviously heavily modding it, but that Volvo 5-cylinder engine seems to be fundamentally fairly strong.
Yeah.
And if you keep it anything under 400 brake horsepower seems to be fairly robust.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you start going above that, then you might run into a few problems unless you do some additional strength work. But anything under that seems to be pretty reliable. And this is the first thing that's ever gone wrong with mine in 12 years of owning it. It's the first time I've had to do something with it. And we're up to. I mean, it doesn't get driven that often, obviously, but I've still managed to put on 120,000 kilometers on it. So it's not like it's a complete
trailer coin.
Yeah, it does get used. It got used more when I first had it. It hasn't got used that much recently, but it's still got decent miles or Ks on it. Yeah. And up until that point, it had been perfectly reliable. But I mean, the new planning went on. She started straight up, bang, away we go, and it's back to how it was.
I'd say very, very lucky boy.
Very lucky boy. I was having another chat to the couple of the guys at the workshop on Monday when I picked it up, and they were saying they still can't believe that there was nothing in the internals of the engine when they did the check and the valve seals and all that. They did a valve seal vacuum test and all that, and it was all perfect. So they were staggered, amazed that it didn't, nothing got inside. So, but it looks much better with the black. I got the vents on the bonnet, so from factory they come out color coded and obviously mine and green. I got them changed to black, to go with the rest of the front, and it looks much better. Ford should have done that. Ford should have done that from.
Ford should have done it to start with. Yeah. So they and you probably don't know why they don't, like just some sort of weird thing that they've started with, and you got no idea. But isn't it great when you can customize your car? So that's the beauty about it.
Absolutely.
So
what's been happening in your world this week?
Not much,
apart from getting COVID.
Well, I didn't get COVID. See, this is the thing. So, I've had to put up the wife having COVID. I didn't get COVID because I'm immune. So if you want immunity, just come around here and I'll give you my immunity, which is fine.
I can see some of your immunity on the back shelf.
Yes, I'll be dishing that out a little bit later, so it'll be good. So no external news as such. I guess the only thing, maybe from last week, from one of my classic car meetings that I went to, we had a bit of, the boys from Penrite Oil there. We spoke a little bit about what happened in Penrite. So I better do the right thing. Look, not sponsored, but there's the hat. Maybe we should be sponsored now.
We should contact your Penrite and say, look what we've done for you.
Yes.
After you do your little speech, Penrite are going to increase their sales by 100%.
Of course, absolutely. Yeah,
hopefully you've arranged some sort of deal, commission.
Yeah. So they had a bit of a chat about about oils and all that sort of stuff. And for those that don't know, Penrite are an Australian manufacturer of oil. They've been in business for 90 odd years. They're a family-owned company, owned by effectively a little old lady who's been in business and runs the company, and her sons obviously run it as well. So it's one of those Australian stories, and they make really good oil. So which is another thing, and they specifically brand oil for classic vehicles as well as modern vehicles. So, and you've got an engineering team or a chemistry team that you can actually ring up if you're in doubt, and they'll suggest what oil to actually put in it. But they sell millions and millions of litres of oil. But it was interesting. It's always interesting to hear stories on businesses that run in motorsport. And then I guess when you look at it now, what happens going forward, obviously with electric vehicles, because obviously you would think things like oil and petrol will obviously decrease in volumes. Well, of course, companies that are doing it will obviously be gearing up to what goes in electric vehicles. So, and there's still oil in electric vehicles, still oil changes required in electric vehicles. There's cooling systems as well. So they'll gear up for, modern technology and those sort of things. But I guess from Penrite point of view, the biggest question that gets asked is Australian V8 supercar racing. I mean, we brokered that last week, with obviously, I guess it was what would you call it? The coup of the coup of the decade with Garth Tander moving to a Ford team. Well, of course, he's moved to Grove Racing, which has become obviously a Ford team. And out of, when you look at Garth Tander, I mean, you've come out of what's arguably the best seat in Australian touring car racing, being the second seat to, Van Gisbergen at 888. How's that, how's that to give up? I mean, that's a big step to actually give that one up, step into a team, win a race. You're with the championship leader and arguably probably the best driver, of the age at the moment.
Best team driver combo. I mean, obviously, he's not a full-time driver anymore. He only does the enduros, but nevertheless, I'm sure he still wants to win. Even and everybody wants to win Bathurst, whether you're the lead driver or the second driver. And any second driver is always going to want to strive to get in the best team to give them the best chance of winning. What is literally the best race in Australia and one of the best races in the world. And for the last couple of years, Shane Van Gisbergen and Garth Tander have been the combination to beat. They really have. And for him to voluntarily, step out of that team to go to, a team much further down the grid, probably, is an interesting move for sure. And when you consider that Garth Tander, for his entire motor racing career, has been well and truly in with the Holden staple.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, and I remember hearing him on the podium, and he pretty much got stuck into anything Ford related.
I wonder how the fans will treat him next year. Yeah,
exactly. So he's been you know, a Holden fanboy for as long as I can remember, and it's very surprising to see him with the blue oval. It's staggering.
Yeah. No, I mean, not the first time a Holden boy has changed. You know, obviously Lowndes, you know, went from Holden to Ford and raced with Gibson Motorsport there, you know, for a while as well.
He did, the green-eyed monster.
The green-eyed monster. That's it. Yeah. So they did that. I mean, even, you know, the legendary Peter Brock drove Fords at one stage, you know, and you can't say that some of the Ford drivers haven't driven Holdens. I think there's been a lot more crossover. You know, when you go back through history, there's been a little bit of crossover. You know, but you know, we love one mark, don't we? We barrack for a mark, and you know, in Australia, you're a Ford or a Holden guy. So, you know, from a motorsport point of view, anyway.
From a motorsport point of view, although that's obviously all changed now because there is no Holden.
Yeah, no. So obviously, a couple of things when you say, yeah, absolutely remarkable that you give up the second seat, you know, and co-driver to, you know, the championship leader and best driver. Sebastian Tander, obviously, as a driver at Grove Motorsport. So he's in the junior development program. So there's a connection there. The old 888, so, you know, SVG's engineer moved over to Grove last year. So, you know, when I think when one of the Kellys was, you know, team manager there, you know, so Grove have got a long-term history. You know, the boys at Grove have been racing Porsches and all that sort of stuff for years. You know, and obviously their foray into V8 supercars through Kelly Racing, and then, you know, once that purchase has obviously come through, David Gauci, who was Shane Van Gisbergen's engineer, has come over to Grove, and of course maybe you see, well, you know, that's a little bit of why they've been so successful, but it's also a pull to Garth as well, and you'd think that Garth is looking for more than just, you know, to be there's more to it than just be co-driver in the deal. So there's going to be obviously involvement in their junior team program. You know, you wouldn't be surprised that, you know, if he's not looking, you know, 5 or 10 years into the future and thinking, you know, there's a senior team executive role / team principal role, you know, at some stage. And you think, well, you know, where do you go if you don't go into media? If you don't own it, you know, what other choices have you got as a retired driver? You can either set up a team, own a team, you know, work for a team, or you go into motorsport media. There's only so many jobs, I guess, going around.
That's right. If you want to stay on the paddock, so to speak, then that's right. You're either in media or you're involved in the team some other way.
Good on you. Anyway.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And there's probably a bit of money involved as well.
I'm sure there is.
Yeah. So, but
at the end of the day, there always is.
Correct. It won't be the only reason, but it's probably one of the reasons. Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see who replaces him.
You mean Jamie Whincup might get a seat at Bathurst with Van Gisbergen next year?
Possibly. I mean, obviously, he was the. They didn't team up this year. I mean, obviously, this year they had the 3 cars because they gave Lowndes.
Yeah.
And the rookie, I forgot his name now. His name escapes me. The rookie guy who teamed up with them, and they actually had a decent race. We'll see. It'd be interesting to see whether they put Lowndes back in the actual Red Bull car, what they do with Whincup, or whether they get another driver in.
Yeah, I think the wild card entry seems to work fairly well for Craig Lowndes, and I think that formula will still continue. And me personally, I'd say Whincup will jump in with SVG. There you go. We'll wait and see what happens.
Because he wants to win it.
Because you are. Well, who wouldn't? Like, get another Bathurst up. So, hey, I know we like to talk about, you know, Ford stuff, and we already started talking about a little bit of Ford news, obviously with the RS, and we were talking about how tough some of those engines were. Yes, and how, you know, and I mean, you mentioned obviously the word Volvo, but, you know, I mean, essentially it's a Ford engine. We spoke last week, I think, about Ford finding 30 Ford GTs, like, you know, 05 GT still sitting in a shed in Michigan.
We did.
What if I told you that a 2006 Ford GT has just set a world record in top speed, fastest speed for I guess you can't call it a production vehicle. We call it a street registered vehicle. Yeah. What would you say? What would you think? What would you think the top speed is for?
Now, if I remember if I remember from last week, we said that they had a rumored 2,000 horsepower.
Yes, some of them do. Yes.
So now the Bugattis had what, about 1,500, something like that.
Yep.
And they got up to, did they break 300 or get close to 300?
Well,
I can't remember. I would imagine, yeah, for a world record, it would have to be getting up to 300, I would have thought.
Yeah.
Mile an hour.
Yeah, and we are talking mile an hour. We're not talking kilometres an hour here, guys. So in partnership, and the chap's name that did it is Johnny Bolmer, if that's pronounced correctly, did it with Richard Rawlings of Gas Monkey Garage, and the Gas Monkeys are into everything, and they look to do a top speed run. Now, this is just Texas through and through. Like, if you're talking fast street cars and you live anywhere else in the world, you won't keep up with the people in Texas. Like, they are so far ahead of everybody. I mean, they run their Texas 2K every year. They run illegal street racing all the time, but they're running, a couple of 100 miles an hour plus on the streets, on a Friday, Saturday night. And it is just absolutely staggering, the speed that, we're talking. So 2006 Ford GT, 2,700 horsepower. The engine is as solid as a rock, and it ran 310.8 miles an hour before they had to hit the brakes and run out of road. So there's more in it.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, that's a testament to how solid, if you're looking to say how strong are those blocks, the crank, the rods, the heads, everything that went into that Ford GT was just, built with engineering beyond. And look, I mean, that's the fastest street legal version, street legal vehicle in the world, 310 miles an hour. And like, obviously you've got to applaud it. Like, doesn't matter what brand it is, but that Ford GT aerodynamics just seems to work. And I'd say that's part of it. And I don't see it being beaten by another car, to be honest. Like, by another street vehicle. Like, that's fully insured, fully registered, can be driven on the street.
I mean, that speed's incredible. I mean, like you said, the aerodynamics in play to keep the thing on the tarmac is insane. Yeah. But you're right, because you've got to think, well, where's the next engine going to come from to beat that? Obviously, electric vehicles, they have unreal acceleration, but they generally run out of puff at the top end. Yeah. So you think, well, what vehicle is going to come along with 3,000 horsepower, let's say, to be able to go that extra? Because of course, when you get that speed, you need a massive amount of horsepower to go an extra 5 mile an hour.
50 mile an hour.
Yeah.
No, it was absolutely staggering. So I saw the run. Like, obviously they slow it down with parachutes at the end, and they stand on the brakes, and all that sort of stuff. And it was really squirrely. Like, when he's hitting the brakes at the end of it, it's squirreling down the racetrack, and he's off the end of the track into the dirt. Away they go. So incidentally, they ran 259 mile an hour like last year. So something like that, or a few years ago. So that it wasn't a one-off. They've been gearing up to going as fast as they possibly can. But you sort of say that, and you think, well, that sort of stuff, is great. That's closed circuit. It's on a track, full safety and everything else. Because I mean, this week, when you do look at what happens, and of course we mentioned, Texas, street racing, we don't condone it. It never pays off. I mean, this week, a 2020 Mustang at 200 plus miles an hour on the Texas freeway ran into the back of another car, ran into the back of a Hyundai, and just basically, crashed. No, it doesn't look like anybody was killed in it, but just horrific accident. So if you're going to obviously go street racing, take it to take it to a track and run there. But yeah, it's so a bit of good and bad, in that story. A bit of positive and a bit of negative, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'll be interested to know a couple of things about that. I don't know whether you could find that out. What sort of gearing it has to obviously get to that speeds, and what effect that has on the acceleration. And getting power down must be a nightmare.
Yeah.
From a standing start. What sort of tyres has it got on it? I wouldn't know. And just out of intrigue, I wonder how much fuel it was guzzling through when it was going.
Yes.
But it was doing 300 and whatever, 10 mile an hour at that point. Those things would be interesting to know. So I wonder whether any of that sort of stuff gets released at some stage.
Yeah, I imagine it will. I imagine there'll be a bit of stuff coming out on it. I mean, it's only happened in the last few days. So I imagine if you jump on Gas Monkey, YouTube channel and Richard Rawlins, I imagine he'll be, proclaiming how great it is. It's I think it's Bad GT from memory, something like that. The registration plates on it, but they're a powerful car. I mean, Ford, they built an absolute winner with that GT, and it's just, I think they tried to improve on it, didn't they? They tried to take what they did back in the 60s, and then they tried to redesign it. And I don't know whether you remember, didn't they try and build a car show special GT?
They did, yeah.
Yeah, they tried to modernise it, and it was really weird. It never really worked, never really took off. Yeah.
That's right. But they certainly won a winner there. And as Ford fans, as we are, man, it's got to be the best thing that, it's not. I mean, I guess Ford haven't really done this particular version, but nevertheless, it's come from. It started off life as a Ford, and to see that thing do what it's done is just amazing. So
it's absolutely staggering. So and for all intents, looks fairly stock. I mean, it's not, but it looks fairly stock. So which is really, really fabulous. Hey, I've got some. I don't know whether you've got a bit of news. I've got some absolute hilarious stuff that's just needs to be spoken about, and it probably needs more than coffee, to be honest. So,
well, I've got some more Ford news. So maybe I'll just quickly.
More Ford news.
Because I know it'll interest you because it involves Ford and the truck.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah.
So I know that's your the two most important things in life to you. And then we can talk about your hilariousness. But obviously, F-150, as we know, American truck.
Yep.
Apparently, it's quite popular over in the States.
Apparently, yes, like largest selling vehicle of all time. So,
and obviously,
it's probably not that well known.
And obviously, you have one over here. But it's obviously it's coming out for sale semi-factory in Australia in 2023.
It is, yes.
So they're being converted and made right-hand drive from Ford in 2023. And it's coming out.
Not quite from Ford though, is it?
No, it's not. It's not a Ford conversion. I think you buy it from Ford dealers.
You buy it from Ford dealers, converted by like a contracting company to Ford who are doing the right-hand drive conversion on them. Yeah.
It's coming out in two versions. It's coming out in the XLT and the Lariat.
Yep.
And they've just confirmed that they're coming out in two of the wheelbases, so the short and the long wheelbase beds.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
So both of them are coming out. And basically, they're just going through the testing at the moment in Australia to ensure that they meet our famous Australian conditions, whatever they are.
Yep.
I still wonder what these are. Maybe I don't know whether they're horrendous roads or desert or what. I don't know. But anyway, they're undergoing thorough Australian testing. They're doing towing at the moment, and they've been doing rigorous towing, 4.5 tons.
Okay. Yep.
And that seems to be, and they seem to be working out well. But basically, they've been doing that off road, and they've been doing over 100,000 kilometers worth of testing. Just the towing bit, and also the extreme temperature testing. So it's currently going through that, but expect full release next year with both short and long wheelbase.
Yeah. Okay. So I wasn't aware that they're bringing out short and long wheelbase. So that's probably
just been announced. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like the short wheelbase F-150 looks great. Like it's cosmetically appealing. You know, fits into most people's garage. Well, I mean, won't fit into most people's garages based on height, but you know, lengthwise, it's a little bit better. But you think having you know what they call the screw, the you know, the twin cab, we call them dual cabs here. You think that one would be the most popular version, you know, from a resale point of view. So, you know, anybody driving single cab utes, I mean, maybe they're testing the market because, you know, the Aussie ute, which is a single cab, but I think dual cab market will just eat it alive. You know, it'll be like 90% dual cab, 10% single cab.
Well, yeah, so apparently they've got huge pre-orders or expressions of interest already through dealers, talking about 8,000 prospective orders.
Wow.
For it already. It's expected to cost somewhere between $90,000 and $110,000, depending on the trim. And obviously, it's going to come out with the 3.5 litre twin turbo exclusively.
Yeah.
In Australia.
Yeah, well, they've got to compete with the Ram, don't they? And I think a Ram is probably seen in that sort of 90 to 100,000 range. And I mean, there's about 5 different versions of Ram as well. And I think they run up, you know, 110, 120, 130. So they're in that early sort of range. But I mean, great to see Ford selling F trucks here again. You know, over the years they've come and gone and sold a few, not sold a few. Good to see.
Well, I mean, they're the last of the party, really, aren't they? In Australia.
Yeah.
When you consider that we can get the Ram, we can get the General Motors.
Correct. Yeah, I'd say it's a response. It's a response to like Chevy selling Silverados here. It's a response to Ram obviously taking up the market, you know, here. And I mean, Ram advertising here is, you know, we eat a dual cab ute for breakfast, you know, style of thing. And I mean, Ford's had arguably one of the best dual cab utes. You know, I mean, that Ranger has been pretty good. They've facelifted the Ranger. You know, it's come out with a new one. So maybe they just haven't wanted to take sales off the Ranger, but see themselves now in a market where people who aren't going to buy a Ranger anyway. So they're not going to buy a Hilux. They're not going to buy a Ranger. They're not going to buy, you know, like a smaller pickup truck. You know, they want a full size, you know, and I think the Australian market has now warmed up to a full size pickup truck.
Well, I mean, we see how well they sell the Ram in particular. They're everywhere. So if you at the end of the day, if you want to either tow legally a decent van or horse float or anything like that, or you just want to be uber cool and drive a big truck, then I guess, you know, at the moment you've only had Ram on, then
that's it.
Relatively recently the Chevy to choose from.
That's it.
So, and we know how popular the F-150 is in the States, so I suspect it will do well.
I think it'll do really well, and I think it'll be a prelude to seeing the electric F-150 Lightning coming out as well. I mean, it's a shame we don't get the 5 litre, but you know, I can certainly understand why.
We'll see if we get the Raptor, I guess.
Yeah, maybe not get that one either, but you know, you might. So yeah, it's good news for Ford anyway. So because I think they'll sell like hotcakes, 8,000 odd orders. That's fantastic news. So yeah. Before we move on from Ford and get rid of the F word completely, is Ford coming back into Formula One?
You've stolen my thunder.
I've stolen your thunder. There you go. Well, maybe we'll go straight into your straight into your F1 news, and then we can get rid of the Ford side of things altogether.
Well, I mean, that was one of my F1 pieces of, you know, rumor mill.
Yeah.
There's rumors going around that Ford are going to re-enter Formula One in partnership with Red Bull Racing. Now, obviously, as we know, Red Bull Racing and Honda have well, Honda have started to, withdraw their support for Red Bull Racing, and they're no longer involved.
Mm-hmm.
And Red Bull Racing are going to continue with their program of doing their engines themselves, but they are open to an idea with partnering with a manufacturer still, obviously, as you would, in terms of sponsorship, etc. And there's rumours that Ford are looking seriously at entering into Formula One on that guise, and basically partnering with Red Bull more in terms of a commercial sponsorship type of arrangement, and as opposed to supplying engines or anything like that. But there will obviously be a naming right, team, much like Aston Martin, did with Red Bull when they were partnering with Red Bull back a few years ago. So that'll be interesting to see if that happens. We'd love to see a car running around on an F1 track with the blue oval on the side.
It'd be great again, wouldn't it?
I think the last time that happened was with Jackie Stewart Racing Stewart Racing.
Or Benetton, Benetton Ford.
Well, Stewart Racing came after Benetton.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Because Stewart Racing was the precursor to the Jaguar, which is the precursor to Red Bull Racing.
There
it's kind of
history. Yeah. And of course, the obvious connection is Red Bull involved with Andretti, which is involved with Ford.
Yep.
While Control Racing, obviously, now here in Australia, which is a Ford team, and a Red Bull.
Do they have some rallying partnership as well? I can't remember.
They got a rallying partnership as well. So
yeah, they did or do. I can't remember, but yeah.
Right. So apparently the official word, I guess, or maybe not the official word. I think mum's the official word at Ford at the moment on it. So, I think it's hit the press release, and everybody come out in the media and saying, Ford are linked. The boss of Ford, so Mark Rushbrook, was actually talking, because of course, NASCAR season has just concluded, and they were doing, the recent media events and all those sort of things in NASCAR, and he was directly asked, and this is only 2 days ago, whether Ford are coming back into F1, and his response was basically, I'm not confirming or denying the rumours. Which means
they are.
We're here to talk about NASCAR. End of story. Let's move on to the next question.
Which means they are. So I think we could.
Yeah, there's your official Ford response. So, it'd be great to see, won't it? Like, it'd be fantastic.
It would. I might actually support Red Bull.
I
might change my allegiances to Red Bull in that case.
Yep.
Wouldn't it be good to see Red Bull Ford Racing with Daniel Ricciardo winning the championship?
How great would that be?
I think that would be a pretty good.
A
pretty good.
We go like Aussie.
Yeah, absolutely. Just another bit of F1 news. I see Mick Schumacher has signed for Mercedes.
Yes, as development driver or test driver.
Is driver number 3, whichever way you.
Driver number 3. Yep.
Whichever you want, a reserve driver. We talked a little bit. We speculated about this last week and said we thought that it would be a good move for him. Obviously, he's had a bit of a rocky period in Haas. Haas let him go. He was under a Ferrari, still under as a Ferrari driver up until just recently, a day or so ago. The second Ferrari got released, or he got released from Ferrari, Mercedes then announced that he was
signed. Yeah, I mean they all talk to each other, don't they, all the time? So they really know what's going on, all the time.
So I think that'll be a good move for him. It will take the pressure off being on the, as a driver, and allow him to not only develop as a driver, but also develop as a driver in a top team. Yep. And I think he'll benefit from watching the likes of Lewis Hamilton, how he works, how he drives, how he operates, and hopefully he'll be able to develop as a driver and see him on the grid again in a couple of years as a much better driver. And who knows, he may even one day race for Mercedes. Wouldn't that be good to see?
Oh, it'd be great. Like, as I said, how do you knock the name Schumacher in F1? Like, it is the name to be, isn't it? Like,
it is, especially driving a Mercedes car. I think it's a great.
Yep.
A great tie-up. So we'll see what happens there.
A great time. How about we cross over to a little bit of a little bit of American car news with with Hellcats. I think we spoke about Hellcats last week on the podcast. That obviously we're going to see the last of the big supercharged V8s, all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
They're going to bring it out in a manual. Final swan song. You're going to be able to get a manual supercharged, 700 plus horsepower V8 again. How about that? Yep.
6-speed, I'm assuming.
It's got to bring it's got to bring a smile to your face, doesn't it? Like,
I want to see the clutch on that.
It's got to bring a smile. I mean, so when you look at it and you think, where are we now? So we're at the end of 2022. Are we arguably in the best ever time for motoring enthusiasts, like for car people? Like, we've got supercharged V8s with 700 horsepower in production vehicles. We've got 10-second street cars coming out of the factory. We've got Range Rovers and Bentleys and everything with 600 and 700 horsepower. Are we arguably living in the best time ever as car guys? Like, will we ever actually see this again? We talk about, as technology moves on, technology has got better and better. I mean, are we at the ultimate, like what we see this year and next year, are these going to be the ultimate cars, the ultimate gasoline-powered cars, like ever in existence?
Good point. I would probably agree with that. I mean, obviously, cars, in theory, get better with each new iteration. They get more powerful, they get faster, they get, just better all around, generally speaking. And by extension, if we say, well, what's coming out now is the last iterations of, the internal combustion engine for all the various marks, it will be the ultimate version. You're probably right. I mean, some traditionalists will say, well, we've lost a couple of, of engines or cars or makes or models or whatever that are no longer in production for one reason or another. But the ones that are still putting them out there, their last swan songs are probably going to be the best of that vehicle ever made. And it's just a shame that this little pokey country down under doesn't get half of this stuff.
We don't, I know, yeah. But you wonder how collectible, you look and say, how collectible are they going to be as well? And I think you'll see that, what sells will be highly collectible going forward. If you look 10 and 15 years down the track, if you're sitting on a supercharged, Hellcat, it'll be double the value of what it is
manual.
Now.
Could you imagine the burnouts you could do in a manual Hellcat?
It'd be absolutely stunning, wouldn't
it? You could do the longest 11s in history.
Nothing wrong with that at all. absolutely nothing wrong with that. Oh, dear.
Speaking of last of production models,
yep,
I see Cayenne.
Yes. Yeah, I'd love to make a Cayenne, yes.
Cayenne, aka Kia, have officially announced the end of the Stinger.
Oh, well, I mean, probably about time. Like, it's probably been around long enough, to be superseded by something else.
But, well, it's not going to be superseded.
They're just getting rid of it completely.
They just get rid of it. So particularly in Australia, the Kia was probably the Stinger was probably the last rear-wheel drive performance car for the everyday man.
Yep.
It was kind of the Falcon Commodore replacement. If you wanted a fast rear-wheel drive sort of sedan, and you're coming from a Commodore or Falcon, you could go, oh, well, I've got the Stinger here, and it kind of filled that role a little bit. It probably did. It didn't have the same brand, appeal or the following that Ford and Holden did, but nevertheless, it was kind of seen that. It was obviously popular with the Highway Patrol here in Australia. But no, they've announced that it will be ending, I think it's next year, and they're doing a limited 1,000 car run called the Tribute Edition, which is basically their final run, I guess, of the Kia Stinger. But once again, none of those will be coming to Australia.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. We miss out. We miss out again.
we miss out again.
Yeah.
But I mean, I actually don't. I don't mind the Stinger. It's it's a good-looking car, reasonably quick, reasonably well appointed, drives reasonably well from all accounts. And it was obviously pretty cheap. I mean, you've got
so
to
where
go
will they go? Where will they go in price? Do you think? Will they go up, or you think they'll go down?
I don't think they'll go up. I just don't think they've got the. I don't think they've got the brand following that a Commodore SS or an XR8 has, or something like that. I think it'll just be one of those vehicles that you see driving around from time to time, and it'll just dwindle away. Unfortunately, would be my guess. But the sales, the stopping production because sales are slowing, obviously. Sales for all sedans seems to have gone the same way, haven't they? So that's the end of that one. So I think the days of fast rear-wheel drive sedans are almost over. For less than $100,000, I don't think you could pretty much say goodbye to all of them.
Yeah, unless of course now you're starting to go electric, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess you can get the bottom of the range ones in two-wheel drive, but the good ones are all-wheel drive, aren't they? So or the faster ones anyway. Yep.
Well, I've got a bit of news which sort of relates, I guess, to that. If you're sort of sitting down and you might need something.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
You're on the edge of your seat. In America, obviously, we have labour laws and things like we have everywhere else in the world. I think we've got labour laws, and you can imagine, obviously, a plant like Hyundai Motor Plant in America. The authorities, when they come in to do their labour checks and come in through the front door, you can imagine, obviously, how many people exit out the back door of all those sort of companies. So, well, what's just been reported is that one of the Hyundai suppliers, so not necessarily Hyundai, but one of the Hyundai suppliers were, I guess, what would you call it? Would you call it invaded? Maybe not invaded. Maybe you've got the authorities going in the front door and basically all the workers going out the back door. And reports have come out, and this was across 10 different supplier facilities to companies like Hyundai and Kia and probably many others, that they've got children working for them. and I guess you could say, you look at panel gaps on cars and you think, an 8-year-old has probably put it together. Well,
it's literally true.
Truth is not far from the report. So reports have come out that a 14-year-old Guatemalan girl was assembling body components at the factory. A 12-year-old was stamping metal presses in the metal stamping shop, and there were dozens of underage workers, with at least 4 found at Hyundai and Kia supply plant. Now it's not hearsay, that's actually come out of Reuters. And they've obviously detailed where those 2 supply plants, are. And of course they've interviewed people, and they basically said that, the US Department of Labor has now obviously, detailed allegations that children as young as 12 were working in other Hyundai and Kia supplier plants in Alabama. And then up to 10 other supplier plants have been also investigated for child labour violations. So, you sort of say, well, you've got labour laws. You don't want kids working in, a factory like that. I mean, it is dangerous. You don't want kids working in an environment like that, but you don't want kids under the age of 18 working, in that sort of environment at all. And I can understand that, maybe they want to, they want to earn money, but, at some stage, those suppliers have certainly got to,
well, they're taking. I mean,
do the right thing, don't they? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I mean, I'm assuming they're saving a fair bit of money by employing child slave labour effectively.
Yeah, pretty much.
You wonder what the parents, if there are parents, I don't know, but I'm assuming they're all refugees and things like that. They've just been taken advantage of by these large parts manufacturers. I'm assuming they're fairly large companies involved, if they're supplying the likes of Hyundai and Kia, etc. That's shocking, isn't it?
It's shocking. It's absolutely abysmal. And I mean, you don't hear about it. I mean, I guess we go looking for stories like that so we can actually bring it up and make a habit of talking about it. But I mean, you think the natural reaction by a company like Hyundai is it will, stand up straight, which it has done, and say, we don't tolerate violations of labour law, but
have they terminated the contract would be the question.
Yeah, aren't they responsible for where their suppliers, parts and all that sort of stuff come from as well, and I guess, look, it's a fault of the system, and it's a fault of, well, what are the penalties for employing, child labour, and they find the supplier like, $30,000, for a violation. Well, you think, well, if they've just saved, $50,000 on wages, because they've paid the kid obviously a lot less and he's happy with that, it's that old money thing again, isn't it?
It's just the cost of doing business, isn't it? That, we'll spend this in fines and earn this much in saved costs.
Yeah. But they've got to step out. Hyundai and Kia have, I guess, both got to, front foot forward, step out and say, we're not going to support companies that are going to do that. Because it only encourages them if they don't. But I mean, that's something that as India and and China and third world country. I mean, but it's not. That's happening in America.
Or Alabama.
Or Alabama. Oh dear God, you got to get hung and quartered for that, aren't you?
Speaking of controversy, we like certain car celebrities on this channel.
So we like Gerhard Berger.
Well,
I still reckon. I mean, there's got to be a team out there for Gerhard. I mean, they're all in F1's in monkey season at the moment. Surely Gerhard's got a place at one of the teams.
Well, maybe we should contact him and ask him if he wants to set up a team called Refueled F1.
Yeah, there you go.
How hard can it be?
How hard can it be?
But no, speaking of how hard can it be, our friend Jeremy Clarkson's been in the news. I don't know whether you have heard this. I only bring it up because he's probably the biggest motoring celebrity in the world, and we obviously like Jeremy Clarkson. We like the Top Gear / Grand Tour boys, but he's in trouble again.
Who's he hit now?
Well, he's not hit anyone, but occasionally he writes column pieces for the newspapers in the UK.
Yep.
And he recently wrote one for a popular tabloid in the UK. I won't name the newspaper, but it's like one of the most famous ones. And let's just say he's written some disparaging remarks about Meghan Markle.
Right, okay.
Obviously the spouse to
yes.
Prince. Can we call him Prince Harry or Harry? I don't know.
So he stepped outside his motoring journalist role, has he?
Yes, in response to the Netflix documentary about the two that's obviously been doing the rounds. He's obviously written his opinion about Meghan Markle, and let's just not say, I'm not going to repeat what he said because we might get banned, but let's just say
what, by the BBC,
by Google, but let's just say what he thinks people should do to her is not pleasant.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah.
And he's actually written about this, so obviously you can imagine he's in a bit of hot water, especially with the the feminists, the women's rights, the left wing, all that sort of stuff. So
so nothing changed then.
Nothing changes, and he's come out on Twitter and said, "Whoops, I think I put my foot in it again." And I mean, we like Jeremy Clarkson, we laugh about the stuff that he's done, etc. But I asked the question. He's obviously a fairly, for all of that, he's obviously he's a real smart guy.
Oh, yeah,
He must know when he writes this stuff, the sort of reaction he gets. Does he literally write it for the reaction?
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, and look, you can't say that he's not one of the cleverest guys on television, and maybe sometimes you might overstep the bounds, but how calculated is that when you actually overstep? I mean, look at that relationship that, Clarkson and Top Gear had with the BBC. I mean, wasn't it the ultimate, kick in the pants to the establishment by what they did through the BBC and the trouble that they got into, and actually being able to do it on the BBC was, I think, part of the appeal of doing it for Clarkson.
I think it was, because the BBC is a very reserved, generally a left-wing-ish organisation that certainly likes to not step on the toes of the political correct group, let's call them.
Yep,
and Jeremy was the complete opposite. He used to seek out the toes and jump on them.
Yeah, I know. So do you think? I mean, obviously, the BBC have lost. When that contract didn't get renewed for Clarkson, and we had the whole face punch steak incident and all that sort of stuff going on. I mean, that was just the catalyst for not renewing the contract. But do you think, like, everybody lost something because that relationship, no matter what happens, couldn't be replaced? Obviously they've gone to Amazon. Amazon just, you can pretty much do what you like. We're not answerable to anybody except revenue, ratings and money. But, the BBC are not like that, sort of, I guess, whilst they say, it's not about revenue, it's not about ratings, and it's not about the money. Obviously, they're government funded and all that sort of stuff. But do you think that relationship, has destroyed, I guess, it's destroyed Top Gear because it's never been the same no matter who you put in. But it's destroyed that whole ability for, that relationship to work, that Clarkson against the establishment relationship to actually work.
I see what you mean. Yeah, maybe the only way he's got to be controversial is to now and again write these opinion pieces in newspapers that'll allow him to write it.
I've got to go and read it.
I don't know, but certain. He compared her to certain figures from the past, and certain political figures that are not overly, popular, and he's upset a few of them. But
they probably made more money out of the Netflix show than what he made out of his last Amazon show. I mean, that's probably the main reason for it. So.
But no, it was, could be seen as being an interesting piece, and it certainly has got him back in the news again. Anyway, which is maybe is what he's wanted with his next season of The Farm coming up. Maybe he's wanted to get back in the news again too.
I was actually just going to say that. I was just going to say, we're coming into Christmas, so we're probably leading into that, into the Clarkson farming show, and any publicity now is obviously structured for that.
Yeah, I'd say so. So
yeah. Well, but he's still got his Overfinch. I mean, you've got the Overfinch Landrover. I think he's driving around in an Overfinch Landrover, hasn't he?
He's still got his Landrover. Range Rover L322 Overfinch. He still drives that around. He drives that around on the farm. I think it's his farm vehicle, because he's got his display in the boot or in the trunk.
Yes, yes.
But I don't know whether he's got any shotguns. I can't remember. I'd have to look that up.
Yeah, I can't remember if he's got the shotgun Overfinch or the whiskey Overfinch one. But whichever one, he's got the gentleman Range Rover, hasn't he? Like
he has, that he still potters around in.
Yeah,
that he's had for a long, long time. But it just goes to show you, I'm sure he could afford any new or old four-wheel drive that he wanted, but he still potters around in a battered old 322. So
yep. Oh, they go right. I mean, great shape. You can't argue with it. Like, they're one of those historic collector vehicles now, aren't they?
I think they're getting that way. I think for a good one.
For a really good one, I think they are. Yeah, maybe we actually look at that. Maybe that's a good chat for one of the future podcasts. Like, what we think are going to be really great collector vehicles. We can probably only really comment that to Australia, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Ask. I mean, people ask. Yeah. Right. Comment.
Yeah.
Send us a message.
What do you
Ask us.
think? What do you think is going to be the next classic cars, and we can throw them on the list and we can chat about it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Well, I think that's probably it for this week.
Yeah, on a Clarkson note, like that's probably the end of the episode.
It is.
There you go.
We wish everyone a happy Christmas and New Year out there in the audience.
It is that time, isn't it? So we won't do an episode next week. So we'll take a week off just between now and come back in early January.
In 2023.
Yeah. Merry Christmas all.
We've got a big program ahead.
We have indeed.
Merry Christmas all. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers, guys.